the blast happens at 22,000 feet per second.
Today, my friends, we have Aaron Hale, a Navy chef, Army Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team Leader, entrepreneur, speaker. He made history by becoming the first blind and deaf person to complete the Badwater 135. And that was all after an IED explosion left him blind and bacterial meningitis took his hearing.
Mine is the worst, and I have the best excuse. I'm the only one that has a good excuse to quit. Action doesn't guarantee happiness, but there is no happiness without action.
What's up, Diehards? Welcome back to the Diehard Entrepreneur Stories Podcast. Today it's my honor to host a Navy chef, Army Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team Leader, entrepreneur, speaker, ultramarathon runner. Yes, I said ultra. And if that isn't enough, I should add that in 2023, he made history by becoming the first blind and deaf person to complete the Badwater 135. That's the world's toughest foot race. And that was all after an IED explosion left him blind and bacterial meningitis took his hearing. Today, my friends, we have Aaron Hale. Welcome, Aaron.
Thanks for having me, Devin.
Yeah, thank you for coming along. Hey, Aaron, I'd love it if you could just start by telling us your background and sort of everything that led up to your incredible journey of resilience and that fateful day.
First, I gotta tell you, you're a brave man for inviting a blind deaf guy on the show. But it's funny. So many people, the stories of joining the military, they're always about, I grew up, I have family in the military, and I always wanted to be, this soldier, Marine, or whatever. Me, I absolutely knew up until about a month before I enlisted, I would never be in the service. That just was me. I was like a hippie, long hair, sideburns, and
oh, wow.
In the 80s and 90s. But,
sure.
I was a free spirit and really didn't take very well to orders. But then, of course, I went to college without any direction whatsoever. And of course, everybody knew how to work hard, quickly passed me right by. And I found myself, I kind of went looking for Animal House and created it for myself. So after a few semesters, I was out of my ass. So I was very embarrassed and it was ashamed. And I knew there was one of those catalyst moments, one of those turning points where I needed to get my act together. So,
right. So what was that, the big calling for you, I guess, because it sounds like you said you're more of a free spirit, just kind of roaming, which I totally get that. And I was right there with you. So like, what really changed for you? What caused you to all of a sudden jump into joining the service?
Well, it wasn't like one of those heroic epiphanies or patriotism things. I was looking for the next best option. And it's not glamorous or anything, but I just pissed away my college tuition and I needed a real marketable skill. And education and work ethic, those techniques and skills and things that make you a good credit to your, useful in society. So the military was giving away the GI Bill. And while, I would do 4 years, get the college money that I needed to recover. And then along the way, I would learn some kind of skill. And I loved it to cook. I've always loved cooking since I could reach over the counter. Okay. So I decided I was going to become a chef. I was going to go to culinary school and I would join the Navy because I wasn't interested in combat arms or anything like that. I love cooking, and the Navy, I love to travel too. So the Navy always puts all of their bases are pretty close to a beach somewhere.
That's true.
So I could see the world. I'd let the adventure begin, and I would join as a Navy cook. And, basically Navy cooking school is like how not to kill somebody. But,
right.
Other than that, it was a great time. I got stationed in Italy. I was learning the culture and the cuisine, and I was traveling all over Europe, and I worked my way up to cooking for a 3-star admiral and all this stuff. And I accidentally, while I was getting these like, you know, the ability to wake up in the morning and iron clothing and take care of myself and you know, go to work and earn $1 and learn a critical skill and all the work ethic kind of stuff.
Right.
I was becoming a better me, but I was accidentally also picking up these external values, you know, that service, duty, honor, you know, teamwork, and I fell in love with the service.
I love that.
Yeah, I said, you know, so many people say 4 years and out. 8 years later, I'm still in the Navy. And then, I mean, I was hooked. I was going to be a lifer.
I love that. So it sounds like, you know, those first few years laid the foundation for you is how I take it. And once you got that foundation built, and you had another major shift, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I enlisted in the Navy in 99, actually 9/9/99, September 9th, 1999.
You can never forget that.
Yeah. And I loved being in the Navy. I enjoyed cooking, but it didn't feel like a calling. Yeah, sure. making food on board a ship or whatever. And yes, everybody's job is important. Every, you know, component, you know, is necessary for the war machine. But I joined at a time of peace, and before I knew it, we were in 2 different wars. And I was out to sea in the Mediterranean, and I was watching both of these wars unfold from my TV, you know, a TV on the ship. And right. I thought, you know what? My talents, my skills, my abilities, you know, they could be put to better use. I could do something that, you know, this is, you know, one of those things where I was both feeling a draw to get out of a job that wasn't fulfilling, but also a draw towards being a better use to my community, to the service, to my country. And first I volunteered as a Navy cook to deploy to Afghanistan, where I went from cooking for the Admiral as top brass to 300, 400, 500 ISAF NATO troops in Afghanistan. That was quite a bit of a culture shift, but that's when I met some EOD technicians. And these guys had all their gear dumped out of their armored truck, you know, robots and bomb suits and all that. And they were doing maintenance checks, and it was like a cool guy garage sale. So I struck up a conversation, found out about their life-saving job on the battlefield, how they're first responders, the technical aspect of the job, the physical aspect of the job, and the fact that they're it's like a tight-knit brotherhood within the brotherhood of the military. So everything about it just clicked. This is what I had to do. And I put in a request to go from Navy cook to Navy EOD tech, and that was denied. I guess they like my cooking too much.
So it was easier for you to actually leave the Navy to become an EOD tech than to stay in.
Yeah, after that deployment was up, my contract was actually coming to an end. So I could choose to re-enlist, or I could take my, you know, walking papers. And that's what I did. I let my contract expire. I went over to the Army recruiter. I said, hey, I want to go EOD. And this was 2007. And EOD was in high demand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that time frame.
So they said, welcome. I got to keep my rank. I went from petty officer 2nd class to sergeant. And, you know, I went through this is, you know, it's like a gentleman's version of basic training, where it's the physical fitness and the technical knowledge without all the indoctrination. And then I went through about a year of EOD training before I got to pin on the badge and go to my first unit.
I love it. Okay, so year of training, you're learning this new skill, you're getting prepped for the battlefield. Now you sort of changed your I guess mindset on being in the fight. You get deployed. Tell me about your deployments. Was everything, you know, pretty straightforward initially, or? My
first deployment as an EOD tech was to Iraq. Okay. That was 2009. And I was still, and was brand new to my first unit, but I was an NCO. I didn't come up through the ranks as a private.
Right.
And that hurt me quite a bit, both as a soldier and as an EOD tech, because by E5, E6, we were expected to be a EOD team leader. EOD teams are generally 3-person teams with a team leader and 2 team members, and then the highest ranking, most experienced person on the team is the one that the team leader is supposed to be the one that gets in the bomb suit and makes that long, lonely walk. Well, I was already outranking half of the company,
right.
And I needed to catch up. I needed to catch up with all the general Army stuff that I didn't learn while I was in the Navy. And I needed to catch up with all the EOD stuff. And after a year of EOD training, they tell you that they always say that this is how EOD school is where you learn how to be an EOD tech. You learn, the real learning begins when you get to your unit. And there's so much to know. So it's like learning the language and then beginning your studies. So not only was I a fresh EOD tech, but I also had to develop a level of mastery to the point where I could earn my team leader certification and take my own team. So I deployed to Iraq, and I was the 4th member on a 3-man team, and I was basically apprenticing a team leader. I was there for a couple months. Then they realized that I was kind of, like tits on a bar in that team. So they sent me to Task Force Troy, to the sexy cell, counter explosive exploitation cell. And that's where all the evidence goes.
Okay.
And I learned a ton from the just evidence collection. But I learned a lot. I earned my team leader certification. And then in 2011, I deployed to Afghanistan. And that's when I took my first team, and I was that guy in the bomb suit. We were in a area just west of Kandahar in the Zaray district. And this is the Arghandab River Valley area, very busy, just completely littered with IEDs everywhere. One of my Marine EOD tech friends used to say, every step was a deliberate act. Kind of puts it, a finer point on it, but it's true. You were afraid to, make the wrong step. And we were running so many IEDs. About 8 months into this 12-month deployment, I went back to home on my 2 weeks of R&R. I got to see my firstborn turn 1. I got to witness the whole family gathered around for Thanksgiving, which has become a recurring theme at Thanksgiving, the holiday, and of course the sentiment behind it throughout the rest of my life. But I got to see the whole family gather together for Thanksgiving and celebrate my son turn 1. It was a great last page in the mental photo album. Sure. And I went back to the deployment to finish out the rest of my tour. And as my team was picking me up and jumping into a convoy from the airfield to go right back out to our area of operation, there was a roadside bomb right on Highway 1. So I tossed the luggage off the robot and the robot out of the truck, and we got to work, and it made short work of it, but I wanted to get that evidence.
Absolutely.
So I jumped out of the truck and made my way towards the ID. And about 20 or 30 meters from the original ID, there was a secondary device. It was a little bit late in the detection. If that thing punted me into the air, turned the lights out, rung my bell pretty good, and cracked my skull in a few places among, the burns and, blast frag stuff. But I was still conscious. I don't know how lucid I was, but I was on my knees and elbows, and I thought, man, that's what it feels like.
But, there we go. Had you been blown up with the suit on
no.
prior to that or anything? Okay.
I've never been blown up in the bombs. Never been hit, taken a blast, whatever, in the bomb suit.
Wow.
And I was not in the bomb suit because there's the procedures there were any first approach to an unknown hazard had to be done with either the bomb suit or the robot. So the first approach was made with the robot, and it basically rendered the IED safe because it separated the components. So I was just going to do the evidence collection and drop a charge on that thing and get rid of it.
Yep.
So there was no call. There was no reason for the bomb suit. I was in my standard, battle rattle helmet, pit plate carrier and all that. And in fact, when the lights went on, I thought my helmet had just been pushed over the front of my face. Reached up to get that thing, and it was gone.
Yeah.
That's when I thought, no, my first sergeant's going to kill me for losing that.
Yeah. You're on first sergeant's list for sure. So thinking back to that, first thing that you really recall remembering was total darkness, lights out, and just like feeling that blast. Did you instantly know? Was it sort of like intuitive, or, I just like picture chaos, man. Cause I know secondary goes off. Everybody's probably pulling security. Nobody really knows like what's going on. I imagine pure chaos. What was...
There was nothing else going on. We had the security cordon. There was no traffic. We had traffic stopped, and everybody's watching me. Even the guys, no doubt, on the security cordon who were supposed to be pointing their guns out, were probably all pointing their eyes in, like, what's the EOD doing?
Right.
So, they're probably all just watching me, and the blast happens at like 22,000 feet per second. So it's hard to explain how fast the lights go out, and that like sledgehammer to your head. So I was just, it was like faster than, like 2 frames of a movie. Right.
Right.
And all of a sudden I'm tasting grit and like fertilizer and dirt in my mouth, and I'm thinking, I don't know if it's a gravel or I'm biting other teeth, right?
Right.
And I have no idea what's going on with my helmet. But first things first, I did the functions check. We'll wiggle the fingers and toes, and everything seemed to be more or less where I left it. And I tell you what, I was super lucky, because I don't know how, except for the fact that that it was really hard packed dirt that must have channeled the blast, because I was virtually untouched from my neck down. Nothing.
Oh, wow.
A couple like blast peppering, a little bit on my leg, a little I think I got a piece of it's like a splinter from the pressure plate in my hand. But that's it. The blast hit
incredible.
me in the perfect spot. We Hales have pretty dense heads. So
I love it.
Yeah, but it was really fast.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So blast happens. I'm sure you get medevaced out. Tell me a little bit about that. What was your time like on the recovery?
The medevac chopper, we were just out of Kandahar, right? So medevac was there in like
you just arrived
minutes.
There.
And I found myself right back where I just left.
Yeah.
And they got me up to Landstuhl, and then they waited 24 hours just to let the brain swelling go down before they would do the high altitude transatlantic flight to Walter Reed in Bethesda, Maryland. And it was so funny because, I can't see. I've got bandages all over my head. And they're about to wheel me out to one of those. It's like this medical transport. It's like a C-130 it's all like hospital racks inside. And the nurse, as she's about to wheel me out onto the tarmac, goes, "Hey, would you like to meet Tom Cruise?" What? She goes, oh yeah, I guess he was promoting his latest Mission Impossible movie. He was there saying thanks. I'm like, this is so weird.
Okay.
But before flying out of Germany, I got to shake Tom Cruise's hand and his co-star.
That's awesome.
Anyways, flew over to. I was in the hospital. Yeah, Walter Reed within 48 hours of the blast.
Wow.
And I was sitting in my hospital bed. Family starts, coming in from various parts and everything. It's a whirlwind. It's like there's doctors and nurses and orderlies and there's the Army admin and you got to sign this paperwork and this. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm signing.
Right.
And it's just they're talking about. It's like where do you want to retire? Wait, I don't even want to retire. What's going on here?
Yeah, you're still trying to process what just happened, and they're talking about future plans. Oh man,
yeah. There's so much good. And there's people. There's counselors and nonprofits and it's the Beltway. So there's all these dignitaries and politicos coming and going. It was by. Christmas Day, we actually snuck out just in time because the Secret Service was shutting the place down. The president at the time, Obama, was coming in.
So
we got out just in time to go hang out with my aunt who lives in McLean. But it was hard to process what was going on. And special bonus gift that comes with 100% blindness is a sleep disorder called non-24. There's a longer title, but it's basically the reason is you don't get to reset that internal clock, your circadian rhythm, because you can't see sunlight because our brain is actually wound. Internal clock is wound again every time we get to see sunlight. Even shadows and sunlight, that kind of thing, resets our clock.
Right.
So 100% blindness, it's like being on a 27-hour clock. Oh, you're always a little bit off. And it was really out of whack immediately. And I'm sitting up all night long because that was the only peaceful time and just stewing. I was angry. I was sad. Mostly I was just pissed off. I was pissed off at the Army. I was pissed off at the ANP. I was pissed off at the Taliban. I was pissed off at the president. I was pissed off at everybody. But mostly I was just pissed off at me. And then I let this happen.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we've been through all this training. The best military ever conceived, most training, year of EOD school, all the work I'd put in on my deployments and at my company and in garrison, all this work I'd been putting into to be the best EOD technician I possibly could. And this low tech, it was an oil jug with fertilizer and a pressure plate switch connected by lamp cord to a 9-volt battery. And that's what got me.
Yeah.
I was so mad. And all those questions are like, what if? Why me? Yeah. And all that stuff is just running constantly through my head. And I realized those questions can't be answered. And it's like a spiral of circular logic where if you're constantly saying, why me? Or what if this happened? And you get nowhere. I had a couple things going for me. For one, I've got an incredible family. They started coming in from all over the country. My dad in California, my mom in Ohio, and brother and sister in the Maryland area, DC area. And my mom, she's just tough as nails. She's the sweetest woman ever. But she's been through some tough stuff, including my brother's traumatic injury a few years earlier before me. He's 6 years younger than me and was involved in a roadside construction accident. And it's far more traumatic than even my injuries. So, when she came in to that hospital room and she said, "Hi, honey," all I could think of was, I just said, "I'm so sorry, Mom. I did this to your other son." And she goes, "Oh, baby, not my first rodeo." My mommy was there and everything was going to be all right. Also, I had one of my fellow team leaders from my company was actually there. He'd been there for 2 weeks. And when I went home on the 2 weeks of R&R, I was actually in the DC area visiting my aunt in Virginia. And we did the whole birthday and Thanksgiving right there, just down the street. So when I heard my friend, my buddy in the company had gotten injured, I went to see him, not knowing 2 weeks later I'd be sharing the unit with him.
That's wild.
So, and Kyle Vickers he's hilarious and a great dude. When he got wheeled in, I was just in his room before he got wheeled out of ICU, and he got wheeled in, and I don't know if it was personality or the drugs wearing off, but man, he saw me as like, dude, what are you doing here?
You made it.
and he like conspiratorially was like, dude, I think when the bomb, the blast went off, I think I kicked myself in the face. He lost one of his feet. Yeah, and that's what.
Oh my gosh!
And he goes, what's the worst part about this whole thing is it ruined an awesome calf tattoo. So this is the guy. This is the guy. It's like, right. Weeks later, I'm in the hospital bed, and I'm just feeling so, I'm not a very happy camper, right?
Right.
And he wheels in his wheelchair, and he goes, dude, check this out. Give me your hand. I'm like, why? What's going on here? Military guys. So he grabs my wrist, and he takes my hand, palm up, and he slaps it under his chin. And he goes, check this out. He's got like 2 weeks of growth on his beard. It actually kind of looks like what mine looks like now. But, he's like, man, the Marine EOD techs here, they have this attaché, this liaison guy. And as soon as they get wheeled out of the ICU, he asks how they're doing. If they say fine, he hands him a razor and says, get back in the ring. Whoa, we don't have a liaison, dude. Oh, you got to grow out your beard. It's driving all the Marine EOD techs crazy.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
So, I mean, I can't help. I'm so pissed off. I just want to stew in my own crankiness, and I'm cracking up. And so I've got great support around me. But then that gave me just enough of the headspace and timing to realize what's going on around me, right? And here's something that I have learned ever since then. And it's becoming a universal truth, because it's every time I see what's happening, I realize what's happening, it comes true. Whenever I'm feeling low, whenever I'm feeling anxious or stressed out or frustrated or pissed off or all those bad feelings, I'm usually thinking more about myself. And when I start looking out towards others, even when I'm in the worst pain, instead of trying to figure out how to alleviate my own pain, if I look out and try to find a way to alleviate somebody else's pain, mine goes with it. And the positive is also true. Whenever I try to raise somebody's living standard, or help trying to get somebody to find another stream of income, or give more value, generally speaking, to somebody else, my own personal value raises with it. So I'm there in the hospital and I'm feeling pretty awful. I realize that I'm just thinking about myself, and then I think about Kyle and my family and what they're going through, and all of those wounded warriors or service members. I don't like saying wounded warrior, but recalibrated carnivores, re-engineered experts, up and down those hallways they're going through their own battles. I don't have a monopoly on pain. Who am I to say that mine is the worst and I have the best excuse? I'm the only one that has a good excuse to quit.
Man, that is so good.
So I'm thinking about all these guys, and they're fighting the fight. All these men and women up and down these halls, they're fighting the fight. So I better get my ass into the fight too.
That's good, Aaron. And letting that kind of sink in for me, you're absolutely right. Going from selfish to selfless is usually that transition that I make, or I'm missing when I'm just feeling miserable about myself. Dude, I love that. Okay, so you get through this first part initially. You start your rehabilitation, and then a few years later, it sort of comes back, right?
Well, I decided to sit on my ass for the rest of my life. And it was then that I decided if I was going to be blind for the rest of my life, I was going to be the best damn blind guy I could be. So first thing was learn how to be blind. And they sent me to the VA's Blind Rehabilitation Center in Augusta. They've got, I think, 14 of them around the country. I just went to the one in Georgia. And this is where you learn how to use those text-to-speech phone and computer and learn how to use that long cane to get around. And you know, at Walter Reed, they feed you like you're going through buds. I swear. It was like a mountain of food. So I'd gained some weight laying in that hospital bed for a while.
Right.
And it wasn't much different when I was in Augusta. So I wanted to start getting fit, getting active, start working out again. And to figure out how to go for a run. And they asked me where I wanted to retire. And that was weird. Because I didn't want to. I'm like, maybe it was, the first stage of, grief or loss and denial. But then I've kind of now adapted this active state of denial. Instead of saying I can't, I just start asking, how can I? Right?
Sure.
And there's nothing that's impossible. So, and most of the things, even as a blind guy, been done. I started, as soon as I learned how to use my phone, I was looking up, blind plus outside, blind plus running, blind plus, adventure, whatever. Right. And, some names started coming up, like Eric Weinmeier is the first blind guy to climb Mount Everest. Man. So I sought him out. I've actually went mountain climbing with him in Peru.
That's so cool.
Went to the Peruvian Andes in 2013. And then there was Lonnie Bedwell. There's a former Navy guy who, is totally blind. He got, he says he's got Dick Cheney'd with the hunting buddy, and lost his eyesight. But,
oh no.
He's the first blind guy to kayak the entire Grand Canyon in a solo kayak. Which, nuts, but awesome.
That is nuts.
So, what I did, I found him and I went kayaking with him. There's Ivan Castro. I found out there was even a handful of active duty soldiers that were totally blind. One of them being Ivan Castro, who I think he even earned his commission after going blind. But he was at Bragg, in the Special Operations Recruiting Branch, as a recruiter. Oh, nice. So I got on a call with that guy, and he said he made it a point every year to run the Air Force Marathon, the Army 10-miler, and the Marine Corps Marathon. And I'm kind of an impressionable guy. I'm very suggestible. I'm like, that sounds cool. I'm going to do that too. So I registered for all those races. And then somehow I was in the Panhandle, Florida Panhandle, back at the EOD school, started instructing. And somebody talked me into the local marathon, the Pensacola Marathon. And then the San Antonio Rock and Roll Marathon. Somehow I'd gotten registered for 4 marathons and the 10-miler within the span of 4 months. And I had never run anything longer than a 10K.
Oh man.
But I was terrified of being stuck on the couch, stuck inside, in like that spiral, being trapped and maybe finding my way, crawling into a bottle or something. So I wanted to get outside.
I love that. It's almost like the fear of, what could happen if you just sat there and feel sorry for yourself greater outweighed the thought of pain of running that far or, anything else like that, sounds like.
There was a congressman in I think it was like 1800s, Benjamin Disraeli, who said, action doesn't guarantee happiness, but there is no happiness without action.
That's good.
Yeah, there's something to be said that if you're not growing, if you're not moving, you're never just standing still. You're slowly degrading. And, me sitting around in the hospital bed, I was definitely degraded. It was like I gained my freshman 50 back from college. But so I got out, started running. And here's another great example of how it wasn't like asking for help. At first, maybe it was asking for help, but I reached out to a Team Red, White, and Blue chapter in Fort Walton Beach, near Eglin Air Force Base, right where I was. And I said, I want to, start training for a marathon. Are there any runners in the group? And can they guide me? Running blind is similar, just like running side by side with a sighted runner. I just hold a tether. We actually literally started with one of those tug of war ropes. I hold a knot. My guide holds a knot. Boy, that thing got stinky. But we started running this like Sunday morning marathon. It started off as Aaron's marathon training day, but each week more people showed up and they could go any pace they wanted. Cool. Some people were training for a marathon. Some people were just, coming along because they were getting ready for their first 5K. We had like a crew truck with, a couple of people brought food and snacks and stuff. It was like an aid station, and it just got bigger and bigger. And it wasn't Aaron's marathon training day. It was just marathon training day. And after I stopped, I moved out of that area to, town next door. They're still doing that Sunday morning run. And it wasn't about me. And it was great that all these other people were chasing their goals. And I'd love to be a part of it.
I love that, man.
Then,
that is amazing.
4 years after the blast and going blind, they'd patched me up pretty well. I would never be able to see again. But I guess, there was still a leak, still a crack in my skull that hadn't been patched up. Cause, in 2015, I was having like just an amazing, first half of the year, spring, summer. I was climbing mountains. I was running marathons. I'd run my first Boston marathon, gone kayaking and went hunting, which was a fun story all in itself. And I went skydiving. No, it's kind of like sticking my face out, not fast car window. But you lose a bit of the effect when you can't see.
Sure,
but
I totally get that.
But I was 2 weeks from heading to Kilimanjaro when I contracted bacterial meningitis, and I was sent right back to the hospital. This time, I was even closer to death. That thing was eating my brain. It was trying to kill me from the inside out. Heavy doses of antibiotics. I was in the hospital for weeks, and we cleared up the infection, but it stole what was left of my hearing on the way out. The bomb blast hadn't taken, so it left me 100% deaf. The only reason I'm able to communicate with anybody, including you today, is through this one cochlear implant. I have implants on both sides, but the bomb blast on my right side, like the scar tissue on the inside of my inner ear was too extensive and it just didn't take. So I've got one cochlear implant that works. It's Bluetooth connected to my phone and myself, my computer. And it's amazing because, 70 years ago, I would have been pulling the full Helen Keller. But today, just the technology, it's amazing. It's still kind of like trying to figure out what's going on in the kitchen through the drive-through speaker, but
sure.
way better than the alternative. But,
absolutely.
I went through all those emotions again. It was the second time around is even worse because it's like, when have I paid my fair share, right? Why is that lightning striking me twice? When is this soldier served enough, paid his duty, right? And again, it was the answer. It just can't be answered. And just like the blindness had a bonus gift, so did the deafness. Because when it stole the bacteria stole my hearing, it also took that inner ear gyro, my vestibular balance. So I came home in a wheelchair. Right. If I didn't hold on to something, I'd fall off the toilet.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before, the family circled the wagons and we did it all over again. And, I realized I was sitting at my breakfast bar on the counter, holding on to it to stay upright and going through all these emotions and thinking, God has he's got a soldier's, sense of humor. I was having this epic, as far as blindness goes, I thought I was getting all along, well on my way to mastery or whatever. And he's like, you think you're so hot? Try it again.
Throw another at you.
Put your money where your mouth is and do it again. So here I am. I'm like, yeah, you guys, I'm going to talk to you, buddy. But that's what I did. I was like, okay, well, I've been speaking and preaching this whole strength through struggle. And, triumph over tragedy and all that kind of stuff. And here it was, I've been training for this and I had to do it all over again. So I got to work. I got on my treadmill in the garage and I would hold on to that stability rail like with death grip. And I just hit the quick start button, 0.5 mile an hour, and just start walking. Every day I would go a little bit faster. I used the trekking poles that I'd taken into the mountains, and I was using those just to get down to the mailbox and back. And the holidays were coming up. Thanksgiving was around the corner, and I decided to stop thinking about what I'd lost, what was gone, and how hard it was going to be. And I focused on the family. I focused on others. I focused on Thanksgiving, gratitude. And I love Thanksgiving. 2 reasons. 1, you get together all your loved ones around and your family and express all the things that you're so thankful for in this life. And 2, you get to eat like an absolute glutton and have the excuse. I love it. And so I got into the kitchen. I started cooking. Weeks in advance. I was going to make everything. 2 birds, one in the smoker, one in the oven, ham. I was going to glaze that like 20 times and, just turn it into candied ham, literally like a large, big piece of candy. And then I was going to make every single vegetable as unhealthy as I possibly could. Bacon in everything. That's one of my goals one year. Is everything like Iron Chef is going to have bacon in it. But I started.
Well, you can invite me over. I'm down with that.
Yeah. And then I started making desserts like cakes and pies and cookies and batch after batch of fudge. Because the thing is, I'm not a huge fan of traditional fudge, so I had to fix it. I just put more and more chocolate and butter and all this stuff in there. I'm like, all right, this is pretty good. And then I had this like base recipe and I could try all different types of flavors. So I'll do like one batch with like nuts and then the next one with spices, and I reach into the liquor cabinet, a little bit in here, a little bit in here. Just set it to the side and just do another one. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, said she noticed 2 things. One, there's a smile on my face. I mean, I was waiting. I couldn't hear. I was like literally trapped inside my body because I couldn't hear or see. And it would take over 6 months before I could even turn the cochlear implant on. It'd be almost a year before I could actually have a conversation with somebody. So I was totally deaf and blind while I'm cooking. And she said she noticed something she hadn't seen in almost 6 months, and that was a smile on my face. I was having a good time. And I was cooking, and she also noticed that the fudge was just piling up. So I might have overdone it. Yeah. So she started sneaking out the front door. Like, you got to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy. But she started giving away, friends, neighbors, and people started coming back. It's like, hey, I got a birthday party or some shower or something, and can we buy some of this from you? And the capitalist in me said, well, of course you can.
Yes, you may. I love it.
Man, before I knew it, we had a business.
I love it. That is the birth of Extraordinary Delights. Extraordinary Delights,
right. EOD Fudge.
I love it. I love it. So when that happened, was that more Michaela's idea or your idea? I guess the business side of it.
The business side, I think that was my idea. Actually, the business itself, I'm not sure.
Sure.
Or maybe it was the first customer, person, the neighbor, the friend that said, "Can we buy this from you?" I'm like,
yeah,
people want to buy my fudge.
Yeah, and you kind of connected the two. I love
that. It was funny. We took chocolate school. That was cool. And then I It was so funny because we're learning everything from scratch, right?
Yeah.
How to produce this so it'd be shelf stable, food science, that kind of thing, just so it could be safe. What boxes to buy. And it was so funny because, the garage, it was funny. It must have been hilarious to see lined up with my treadmill, the rower, the stationary bike, and one of those conveyor belt, shrink wrap machines. But we're making this a business, and we started the website and we started selling this thing, and it was before long, surprisingly enough, people were buying. And we got to the point where, OSHA rules say you can't do this in your, there's like a certain level of sales. It's no longer a bake sale. Right. This is a business and you got to have a commercial kitchen. And that's when we came to that crossroads, that decision point where it was like, do we go brick and mortar? Mm-hmm. And I would just imagined in my head cooking fudge in one of those like huge vats, or maybe even on a stovetop or whatever for hours a day, or oh my gosh, behind a register at a counter selling the fudge. That is my idea of hell. So, the other route was going online, doing an e-commerce fudge store. And still, you got to have somebody cook it. So we found a larger confectionery, a larger candy company that makes great chocolates and caramels and stuff. And they took my recipes and they make the fudge, they package it, they do all the shipping, they order all the supplies, they do all of the HR and hiring and basically every aspect of a candy company, all the operations. And we became marketers. We do the finances and we do the marketing to sell it. And the home kitchen became the R&D lab.
I love it.
Around the COVID, the lockdown time, the home kitchen also became the TikTok studio. So for a while we were doing Aaron Hale's Cooking Without Looking. And it was just recipes and kitchen hacks and all sorts of fun things. But we actually grew that to almost, I think it was 150,000 followers in about a year.
Oh, nice.
But then real life started again. And we're like, this takes a lot of work.
Sure.
But the cool thing is that, we get to the point where we're on Fox Business, on the Rachel Ray show.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And I guess maybe it was the business aspect that we really loved about it. Because, like I said, fudge, not my first passion.
Yeah.
I love food. I love cooking and I love bringing culinary joy. But there was, the best aspect of that is that it afforded us the freedom, the financial freedom to really invest in ourselves and in, real estate, investing. So we bought our first rental in 2019 and
oh man.
I've been doing the whole, bigger pockets and from military to millionaire and 7-figure flipping and all these other podcasts. And I was doing all the education and coaching at the time I was doing like online courses or whatever. I was reading all the books and I was ready to buy. And every time I was considering how to invest in real estate, I was like, what is going to give the best ROI? Right. And also we were looking for, something we could afford. We had a nice little, stockpile of cash from the fudge sales, but, still we had to find an entry level investment. And what happened was I found the easiest way to get into real estate for a blind deaf guy was, out of state, an online auction. We're going to do a burr using hard money.
And that was your first investment?
Yes. And it turned out just like you might imagine. catastrophe. But it was also 2019, and we had a crazy market upswing to kind of keep us keep us afloat. But there's so much of that. Like, for one, it was so old and decayed. I seriously think there's a little cottage in Ohio. The roof was only being held up by the 1950s era wallpaper because everything behind it was gone. Yeah. But it made perfect sense, the 70% rule in my head. But then once the rehab budget doubled, we were a little worried. But it turned out all right. We couldn't do hard money because I didn't put it in, I didn't put the contract from the auction house in a LLC. It was in my own name, and they refused to do an addendum or anything like that.
Sure.
So it has to go through like this. Like, well, crap. So we used all of our own cash. And then we had to find private money to get it across the finish line. So it was definitely real estate university. But in the end, we had a rental, and we'd cut our teeth.
I love it.
And we did it again, not an auction, but we started doing BRRRR. Buy, renovate, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. And we're actually doing burster.
Burster.
Or was it Airbnb? I don't know.
Airbnb.
Whatever. But we were going
into short-term rental.
Yeah. BRRRR into short-term rental. Dude. Burster. That's what I like to call it.
The burster.
So we would find a house that needed some work, fix it up, and not just fix it up to market, but fix it up really nice, and then furnish it, and then rent it as a short-term rental. And we're doing this in Akron, Ohio, my hometown, which Akron, Ohio, it's the Rust Belt, Midwest, like a secondary, maybe even a tertiary town. Honey, before I die, I want to see Akron, Ohio. Has been said by no one ever. But it has, these things are the best cash flowing rentals properties. I've done a few projects in Florida near where we live. And these things in Ohio are just, they're just cash. They're like cash machines. They're just spitting out money.
I love it, dude. Oh my gosh. And it sounds like you got the real estate investing university in the flesh. You got to learn, I'm going to have to raise money now. Man, I love that. One thing that stuck out to me, when you were talking about EOD and sort of developing your strategy, I love that you mentioned return on effort, man. You actually thought about it, and you'd said, standing behind a big boiling pot of chocolate in a brick and mortar was like not for me, not the way to go. And, I don't know anything about the chocolate business or anything like that, but like you hired the confectionery and you went that route, and, it's obviously successful to the point where you're able to take that cash and now roll it into real estate. And I love that. I think that's something that's huge. I think it's really cool that you kept taking action, but you also thought about your return on your effort, for sure.
Everything's about perspective, right? Mm-hmm. And I think maybe it's a great perspective of optimism, maybe a little delusion. I don't know. But I keep thinking about all the gifts I've been given, the gift of struggle, right? And if anybody's keeping track, I didn't mention another, ailment, disability, whatever you want to call it. My whole family, men's side lineage, we have ADD, ADHD. My dad's dyslexic. I do not. It's a challenge to stay focused.
Sure.
And I was talking to another guy with ADHD, a guest on my podcast. He was describing how we have many different interests, starting fires and then moving on, and different careers, like a zigzagging career path. And I'm thinking Navy cook, Army bomb squad, Fudge business, a real estate investor, speaker, podcast host. Like, I fit that.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, I'm chasing my passions, and I'm learning from them, and each time hopefully improving. And providing for my family. And the whole time, what's great about this is that when done right, man, we talked about this before the recording, is that, when you do business right, whether it's real estate or Fudge chocolate company, whatever it is, when you do it right, everybody wins. It's not, capitalism is not a zero-sum game. You can't take something from somebody else unwillingly.
Yep.
And when it's done right. So, that's what I love so much about real estate, is that we're buying an unloved property from somebody who really does not want to keep it. And they've been probably kind of desperate to get it out from under it. We're the transaction coordinators, the deal hunters, the agents, the lenders, the contractors, everybody that's involved in this. I'm giving them work. And I'm paying them, a good share. I'm hiring, my VAs from overseas, and they're getting paid better than they would at home. And they're taking the stuff that I would never get done off of my hands. Not just procrastinate, I never do. I just admitted I will not do that.
Yeah.
And what's happening is I'm improving the community. Our neighbors love us. Our neighbors, some communities like no short-term rentals in my neighborhood. Our block, they love our short-term rentals because they're like the nicest looking houses on the block. They're raising the values of all the other houses. Our next door neighbor likes to take down the trash cans for us and mow our lawn. It's no joke.
That's amazing, dude. I love that.
So, and of course, travelers, the renters, they get a great place to stay. We're getting really terrific, reviews. My wife is amazing at managing these things. So, and her design eye, from what I hear, is really terrific.
I love it. Actually, I have seen some of your postings, and I was taking notes for sure, trying to figure out where I could fit that into our flips. Your stuff does look really beautiful. Aaron, one thing that I was thinking about, looking back at your journey, is there, a big lesson learned that you were able to take from, the bacterial meningitis, the explosion, just all these adversarial events that have come up in your life? Any lessons learned from going through those that you've deliberately taken and been able to apply to business now, whether that's, EOD or real estate or your speaking or podcast, anything that you'd like to share?
Well, besides, the value adds, that it's like the go-giver philosophy of you put in the value first. You just expect return. But it's not a transactional type of relationship. Just do the work first, right?
I love it.
You do the training, then you get, you lift the weights, and you lift the weights, then you lift the weights, then you get the muscles. And you put in the work, you put in the value, and you'll get the results later. Besides that, when you said about going blind, going deaf, remember what I said to my doctor when he broke the news about the bacteria in my hearing loss. And I said, Doc, are you telling me I'm going to be 100% deaf and 100% blind? You mean I'm never going to have to pretend to pay attention ever again? Yeah, but that's not a lesson learned. That's just a joke. But one of the things I remember from my military service that helped me through each of these traumatic situations is that, as an EOD technician, a 3-person team, we're given this like quad-cons, tri-cons, there's like partial shipping containers. They're huge for each team. And they're loaded with tools and equipment, bomb suits, robots, power tools, hazmat, decontamination set, all of this stuff. And we get to the, on deployment, and we're given that armored truck, and it's not quite as big. So we got to do a bit of a triage and leave some of the tools behind, because remember, we're ordnances in our name, not just IEDs, but everything that's ever been dropped, shot, fired, thrown, that anything that goes boom, from bullets to nuclear weapons. We are the first responders for those things. So there's a lot of different tools, but you got to figure out what we're going to decide on what's most commonly, probably going to show up on the battlefield. We're not going to find sea mines in the middle of the Afghan desert, right? So we leave some tools behind. We still got a job to do. And then we got to Afghanistan, and it's like these dirt goat trails where there's no roads in Afghanistan. So you got to leave the truck behind and go dismount. We're on foot, and we can only bring what we can carry on our backs. And so we leave almost all the tools. We're going like a Leatherman and a carabiner, a rope, and some C4, and then it's our food and change of socks and stuff. And we still got to do the same job no matter what lies ahead. And like, what was it, General Mattis, call sign chaos? He said, things being hard were never a good excuse for mission failure.
That's good.
So I don't like not having the right tool to defeat the hazard ahead. That's not a good excuse. I still got to use my skills, my talent, my ability, my team, the resources around me. And we got to carry forward. We got to complete the mission. So that's how I look at everything. Forgive the pun again. Our language is all about sight, but
you realize that once you go blind.
I left some tools behind, but I can't complain about it. I can't go back for them. I still got a mission to do. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a business owner. I'm an investor. I'm a steward of other people's money, other people's trust. And I can't worry about the tools I don't have. I got to figure it out. And I got to carry forward. Mission failure is not an option.
I love that, man. All right. We're going to leave it at that as we wrap this thing up, Aaron. Super impactful. Tell us what's going on with you right now and where people can find out more about you.
Well, a lot of my effort right now is going into my podcast, The Point of Impact with Aaron Hale. And I'm talking to me from 5-10 years ago and bringing them interviews with basically us 5-10 years from now. But it's all about mindset and growth and self-improvement so that we can be a better, be of more service, be more service to the community around us, be that impact we want to make in the world. I'm also looking for investors in our projects, always looking to help somebody put some of their money to good work, doing what we love to do. And, for they can investors can get into real estate without having to lift a hammer or a plunger.
Right.
So
I love that.
They can find me at pointofimpactpod.com or, Point of Impact with Aaron Hale on their, on YouTube and the other, podcast platforms. And of course, they can buy Fudge and other awesome treats at eodfudge.com.
I love it. All right, y'all. Visit eodfudge.com. Get y'all some of that fudge. I was looking at it before this show, and I really want to try the mint Alp fudge. How's that? Is that pretty on point?
It's all delicious. It's all good.
All right. Get y'all some fudge. Check out Aaron's podcast, Point of Impact. And if you're interested, we'll have his information on the show notes on how to contact him, talk more real estate, and continue to do life with Aaron. All right, y'all. That's all we got for this podcast. Until next time. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks for the invite. Thanks, brother.